No, it's not a script worthy of a science fiction movie. A U.S. company says that it's been breeding three genetically engineered wolf pups extinct for 10,000 years. The scientists who from a private company in the United States say they are working to reverse the extinction of species.
As adorable as they may be, wolves like these were once one of North America's most dangerous predators. The direwolf became extinct some 13,000 years ago, but scientists from Colossal say they've created three direwolf cubs by altering genes of the grey wolf, their closest living relative. They're calling it de-extinction.
They're genetically really similar, 99.5% similar. And phenotypically, their morphology is also similar. So we targeted DNA sequence variants that we believe lead to those traits. And then we edited gray wolf cells to contain those direwolf DNA variants. And then we cloned those cells and created our direwolves.
Their names are Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi, after the wolves were made famous by Game of Thrones. With their dense, pale coats, they look very similar to their extinct predecessors, but other scientists are skeptical about the term de-extinction and say it's an exaggeration.
So, yes, they have slightly genetically modified wolves, maybe. And that's probably the best that you're going to get. And those slight modifications seem to have been derived from retrieved direwolf material. Does that make it a direwolf? No. Does it make a slightly modified grey wolf? Yes. And that's probably about it.
The wolves will remain in captivity in an undisclosed location in the north of the US, but the technology that the company has developed could potentially help conserve species that have not yet gone extinct, such as the critically endangered red wolf. Colossal has also been working towards resurrecting the mammoth, dodo, and Tasmanian tiger.
Well, for more on this story, we can turn now to from Oxford, Dominic Wilson, physician and professor of medical ethics at the University of Oxford's Uehiro Centre for Practical Ethics. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
You're very welcome.
This story is so startling, it made the cover of Time magazine last week. You heard that one scientist in that report expressing doubt, saying these are not dire wolves. They are what we think might be dire wolves. Your thoughts on that?
So that's right. So the first question is what are these creatures? So they are genetically engineered wolves that contain some genes from an extinct species, the dire wolf species, but have been developed from modern wolves. So they're modern wolves with some genetic variations, so that then they've got something in common with modern wolves and something in common with these ancient extinct wolves.
And your thoughts on this? Is this a good news story?
So in thinking about the ethics of creating these animals, the question is why are we doing? What are the reasons for doing it? And I think it's worth distinguishing that if we bring a species back to life or create a new species, and in some ways this is a new species, it's got some mix of old species, that's not for the sake of the animals. That's different from what we might think is this at state when we're trying to protect a species on the edge of extinction. We might think for those creatures, for that species, we want to try and protect it. So I think that the most exciting and ethically interesting possibility from this technology is its use to potentially save some of the species that are on the edge of extinction. But of course, the question is what's going to happen to these creatures like these new dire wolves or the potential woolly mammoths if they are created, these genetically engineered mix of different creatures? Where are they going to fit into the world? These creatures have become extinct for a reason, often like the dire wolves, because actually their ecological niche has disappeared. They died out because they lost the giant megafauna that they used to hunt, at least in part. So these creatures be able to live in the wild? And if they're not living in the wild, if they're living in enclosures, what sort of life will that be for them? And will that really achieve what is supposedly desired by bringing species back to life?
Yeah, introducing species is always an issue. Just when it comes to wolves here in France, there's constantly arguments about reintroducing wolves. Farmers and environmentalists don't agree. If you genetically create these creatures from the past and you reintroduce them, could there be a Jurassic Park scenario where they become invasive species?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest worries, less the Jurassic Park scenario, but the worry about the damage to the ecosystem. We have a very bad track record as humans of introducing species for a purpose that we think might be a good one. The cane toads in Australia being a particularly memorable and catastrophic example of humans introducing a species that then takes over, it causes lots of secondary damage. So one of the worries about engineering species, releasing them into the wild, is the wider impact, and we're not very good at predicting that.
And this U.S. company, Colossal, what are they about? What's their purpose? Is it to advance science? Is it to make money? What are they about?
Well, it's not my call to say what their purpose is. Clearly, the technologies that they're developing have a wide range of different uses. Bringing these genetically engineered animals creates a huge amount of publicity for them. So we might say cynically that the dire wolves or the woolly mammoths, the woolly mice, are about raising their profile. But there are clearly lots of very important potential benefits from these sorts of technologies, again, for animals on the edge of extinction, or of course for humans too.
Right, there could be implications. So I ask you, because we had a story a few weeks ago about those woolly mice that you allude to, billed as a first step towards perhaps bringing back the woolly mammoth. Dominic Wilkinson, when we reintroduce these, or when we reintroduce what we think are these species, are we playing God? And is that a bad thing necessarily? That we're doing this, that we're tinkering with the genetic makeup of fauna?
Well, I think that the genetic technologies that we are using all the time for medicine are altering things that have occurred by evolution over long periods of time. Now, there are very good reasons when we're genetic engineering, for example, to treat disease, to think that even if that is changing, altering the basic makeup of species, that there are good reasons to do that. But these types of concerns about interfering with nature are important ones. And of course, the more this technology becomes available to us, the more we're going to face these questions of where the boundaries are. What is it acceptable for us to do? Treating disease seems like a good thing to do, but going beyond that, creating new species. So these are in one way a new species. But what if we wanted to create a new species again that hadn't got an ancestor that was made extinct? Would that be a good or a bad thing? These are important questions for us to ask.
So, Dominic, I don't know if you read the news, but these days the mood is not for more regulation. Nonetheless, from what you're listening to you, I get the sense that what you're asking for, tell me if I'm wrong, is that there be some kind of international guidelines, perhaps, on all of this? There's some rules that the world can agree on?
Well, I think we need to reflect as societies about where the limits of these technologies are. Clearly, these technologies can be used both for good and for less good purposes. So we want to reap the benefits of genetic engineering and genetic technologies, but we also need to be very careful about the consequences for the environment, for the creatures that are created, or of course for humanity. So we need to take these steps with great care.
So how do we take these steps with great care is my question. Who decides?
Well, I think you asked about guidelines, and I think that's an important step. There are existing laws, particularly when it comes to genetic engineering that relates to humans, particularly germline modification, that need laws. But in a world where there are many different places and different parts of the world, whether these regulations will be binding or the laws will apply in different parts of the world are important questions to ask.
One final question for you, Dominic Wilkinson. What do your students think?
I think the students who I talk to are intrigued by the prospects and potential of different forms of genetic engineering. I think there's great potential and hope that genetic engineering might solve some of the serious problems of our world, but also concerns come from science fiction. You talked about science fiction at the very start of the story. Concerns about what it might mean to society if these types of technologies are simply adopted without careful reflection and ethical thought.
Dominic Wilkinson, many thanks for speaking with us from Oxford in England.
You're very welcome.